Hey guys, Dan here from Academy 365. In this video, we're going to look at building a podcast network within SharePoint Online, and we're going to model it on Spotify. So with podcasts becoming more and more popular, I don't know about you, but I'm always looking forward to long drives when I can listen to my episodes and get them in. So with them exploding in popularity and the barrier to entry being quite low nowadays, you can record a Teams meeting and that could be a very good podcast episode. I start to see more and more requirements from organizations to actually build a podcast for their company within SharePoint Online and maybe have it being part of their intranet. So that's what this video is all about. And we're also going to create a custom Json view for our site pages library just to make it really look like Spotify. So that's a little bit of fun in there as well. So what would our solution look like if we were to do this? Well, if we look over here, you see the solution is pretty straightforward, okay? What it's going to be is, because we're building a network, so that's going to be multiple podcasts within an environment, we're going to create a SharePoint Hub Site, okay? So this is a kind of a container site that wraps around lots of other sites and pulls them together, and we can aggregate content very easy. So we're going to build one of them, and then we're going to have multiple podcasts within our network. So there's going to be 5, and each one is its own site. And practically that just makes things a little easier because that whole site is dedicated to that podcast and the content that lives within it. So for each podcast site, it's going to be a communication site. We're going to have a document library to hold the media content of our podcast episodes. So that'll be your video or your audio, and then we'll create site pages where each page is going to represent an episode of that podcast that we'll embed the media on, and we'll wrap it up nicely on the home page of the site where we'll get a nice list of all the episodes, and that's our custom Json view. So it'll be pretty nice. So all well and good looking at it on a diagram here, but what will it really look like? So this here is the homepage of our podcast network, the little piece up at the top, okay? So here we have our different shows. So we have Joe Rogan, My First Million, Tropical MBA, Darknet Diaries, Two Bears, One Cave. That just gives you an insight into my personality. A nice mix there of different things, okay? And then when we come down the page, because this is the home page of our network, we want to get a view across all the podcasts that we host. So we're going to have the latest episodes across all of the podcasts, and then we're going to have a section here for the trending episodes, so what people are engaging most with or watching the most, which is really handy. Then if we wanted to actually go to one of the podcast sites, I'll click Joe here. So we go to Joe, and we see here that we've got the Joe Rogan experience. We have his thumbnail, a little bit about the podcast, and then we have all the episodes. So this is using our custom Json view, which is modeled on Spotify. So we have our thumbnail, title, description, a little play button, when it was published, and the duration. So all of that's going to be powered by metadata in our site pages library, and we're just going to format it so it looks like this on the page. So you can come down here and scroll down through the episodes. We have a section over here that lets you navigate to another podcast if you wanted to. So if I wanted to go to Darknet Diaries, for example, I come in here and then I see all of the Darknet Diaries episodes in here. So it's a pretty nice solution, and you might not have a lot of podcasts to stick into a podcast network, and that's fine. You could just create one of these sites if you have a single podcast, and that would be enough, and you could integrate that into your intranet if you wanted. So to recap, what you're really going to learn in this episode is you're going to learn about SharePoint Online Hub Sites, how we create additional sites and connect them to it. You're going to learn how to aggregate content within the Hub Site from all the sites associated with it. You'll learn a bit about page layout and structure, and basically how to build everything I've just shown right now. And the fanciest thing we're going to do in this episode is the custom Json view. Now, don't worry if you're not a developer, don't panic. I'm not a developer, but with a bit of ChatGPT and Google, I managed to string this together. So you can just copy and paste the code. I'll do my best to explain what's happening, or at least the most important bits that you might want to change down the road. By the end of this, you'll know your way around it, so you can, leverage it to whatever you want it to be. So anyway, that's enough rabbiting on for me. Let's get into the build. So here I have a blank communication site, okay? I've not done anything to it. It's straight out of the box. It's nice and fresh. So the first thing that we want to do is let's create a document library on this site, and that's where we're going to host the media files for our podcast episode. So that's, the first step. So we're going to go into site contents, we're going to go to new, and we're going to say document library. I'm going to call this episode content, and I'm going to untick show and navigation and say create. So this is great. This is where we're going to put all the video files for our podcasts. The next thing we want to do is we want to go into the site pages library, and that's where we're going to add some metadata, which is going to capture things about our podcast. So there's a couple of different columns we need in here. Some are already here, they're just not shown, so we're going to show them. And then there's other ones that we're going to create, but it's all fairly straightforward and basic. So just tip, first thing I always do in Site Pages Library is I don't like this by author view. It doesn't sit well with me. So I always go to all pages, and then I'm going to set this current view as default. But then if you go away from site pages and you click pages again, it's going to send you back to the by author view, because that's the link that's saved. So what we can do is just change that. So I'm going to grab the link while I'm on all pages, going to click edit, and I'm going to go to pages, edit, take this link out of here because it does my head in, and then I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to click save, and that'll just always bring me back to here, which is a nicer view to work with in my opinion. So now that we're in here, what are the columns we need? Well, if we look in here at the things we ultimately want to show, we have a thumbnail for the page, a title, a description, we have the play button, but that's going to be in our JSON. We have a created date, which is already there, and a duration, which we're going to add in. So let's do that. Okay, so first things first, if I go to add column and I go to show and hide columns, what I want to see is I want the title, I want description, created is there. I'm going to take out modified by and modified just because I don't really need them, to be honest, at the moment. I'm going to click apply, and that looks great. And now I'm going to add in some new columns. So the first one I'm going to add in is our thumbnail column. So I'm going to come down here, and that's going to be an image column. So I'm going to put that in here, and I'm going to say next, and I'm going to call this image thumbnail. Everything else is fine. I'll click save. Then I want to add in a single line of text. I'll say next, and we're going to call this one duration. Click save, and we have that in there, and that's all looking good. And then, you know, it's optional, but I'm going to just reorder this a little bit. So I'm going to say bring my image thumbnail over here, and I'm going to bring my title over here, and I'm going to bring duration over here. Purely preference, don't worry about it if you don't want to do that step. We're actually going to add one more column, okay, and that's going to be a choice column, and it's going to be called page type, and we're going to have a type called episode, and we're going to have a type called general, and we don't need a choice tree. The reason we're doing this is that we want to be able to distinguish the pages in this pages library from, you know, episode pages and anything else pages, basically, because all the pages on our site will live here. So you might have episode pages in your site, you might have a contact us or submit an idea for an episode page or anything like that, and we just don't want them appearing in our episode feeds, basically. So we'll just do that, click save, and we are good to go. So this all pages view is kind of the view that you should work in if you're going to update metadata and stuff like that within here. But what we want to do is now we want to create our custom JSON view, and we need a starting point. And it's important that when you're creating a custom JSON view, all the columns that you want displayed within that JSON view, they need to be displayed within the view, whether or not you show them in the JSON view, if you get me. So we're going to build our JSON view based off our all pages view, okay? It'll make sense as we go through it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to all pages, make sure you're on that view, click the drop down, and I'm going to say save view as. And what we're going to do is we're going to rename this custom JSON, make it a public view. Yes, you want that, and I'm going to click save. So now we have another view, okay? So we still have all pages, and now we have custom JSON, okay? So this is where we're going to start getting creative. So we're going to show you where we're going to apply our JSON, then we're going to go and look at the JSON, and then we'll come back and apply it, okay? So I'm going to say custom JSON view, and I'm going to say format current view, and then I go down here to advanced mode, and when you click this, congratulations, you're in the top 1% of the whole world who will ever click this link. So I'm going to click it, and you see here we have this little bit of code in here. This is where we're going to paste our own custom JSON code when we get to it. So let's have a look at the code and see what's going on. Okay, so here we have the code in all its shining glory. Now I'm using Visual Studio Code to put this in here, but I'm going to put a link down below to a blog post on academy365.io where we host our Intranet Site Builder Master course, if you're interested. But the link will be to the blog post, okay? So when you go there, you'll be able to just copy this code and you can use it. So you don't really have to understand it, but there's a couple of areas where you are going to want to change a couple of things just to make it work for you. So that's what we're going to go through now. But it's absolutely, you know, free to use, work away. So as I mentioned, I'm not a developer, and I pulled this together, like I said, through examples and ChatGPT and Google and a couple of coffees, but got there in the end and it worked. So I don't expect you to have to do that, but I'd really recommend that you do that. Try and go through this and understand it. And the good thing about this code is you can paste it into where I just showed you and where we're going to paste it in a few minutes, and you can change a couple of different values here and there. Click preview and see what effect it has, and it's a really good way to learn what's going on. But like I said, if you don't want to do that, don't worry about it. Just listen to what I say over the next couple of minutes and you'll be gold. So if I try and explain this a little bit, what we have here is, this is obviously what we're looking to build, okay? And in the JSON code, basically, the way it works is that you've got lots of containers, and containers can be inside containers which will actually hold content, very similar to the way we structure a SharePoint page, to be honest. And we have our sections and then our layouts and then our web parts. So this is a similar kind of a thing. So we have an overall container, and then in that we've got two smaller containers. One holds our image on the left and the container on the right holds all of this stuff in here, okay? And then we want our title to be clickable, and we want this down here to be clickable. So that's why you see inside the container on the right that we have a child, and it's a button, and inside that button, that's our title, and that really just controls this part here. And then we've got another container which is a child, and that's the description. And then we've got another little sub container down here which has again another button with an image inside it, and that just takes care of this. And then we've got another child for the created date and another child for the duration date, okay? So I don't expect you to take all this in right now, but you might pause this or come back to it when you're looking at the code, and it might spark something in your head. I don't know, but the diagram helped me when I was going through this, so I thought it might help some of you. So when we look back into the code, we can see here at the top, we've just got a lot of stuff in here, right, that you don't really need to worry about. We come down here. The first thing you're going to want to look at is when we say here we have an element type within our child, which is the image, and the source of that image is going to be image thumbnail. Now you might recognize that name from our site. So get this out of the way. So we have in here image thumbnail. So that's a column that's in here. And if we look in here, it matches here. So whenever you see these square brackets with the $sign and then a label, that relates to a column in our list. So this is basically saying, yes, I want an image, and the source of that image is going to come from our image thumbnail. So when we upload an image into there, it's going to show it. And everything out here is just saying, if I don't have an image, show me a blank image of a user profile photo. But we're always going to have a thumbnail, right? That's important. So that'll be in there, and that's good. And this style is the width and height of that image. Now I picked these dimensions because they look good for me. It's good for you if you're going to create your thumbnails and follow this exactly. They're the dimensions of the image you want to upload for your thumbnail. I'd probably create the thumbnails at maybe twice that size, but keep the proportions the same, and then it will scale nicely. So that's where our image comes in. If you've named your thumbnail column something different, make sure you put it in here as you've named it in the list, okay? That's important. So then we're into the element here, which is our div, which contains the button, which contains the title within that, okay? So what you want to be aware of here is that in my example or my site, I'm using a dark theme. So that means that I need the colors of my text and stuff to be white, and the backgrounds to be dark. So when you see in here, we've got style. So we're in our div, we're in our button, and then we're saying the style is going to be the color. That's our font color, by the way. 3 Fs is white, but if you're using a light theme, you'll change that to 3 zeros, which will be black, okay? And this background color that I have here, this hex value, that basically is going to be the color that I got from here, okay? That's what that color is. So I just used the color picker, got that color, and then I put it into code, and there's a background here behind this, and that's just telling it to match in basically with the site, okay? So if you're using if you're using a lighter theme, you'll probably want your text to be black, so that'll be your 3 zeros, and you want the background to be probably white, which will be 3 Fs, okay? So that's just worth noting. You'll probably want to change that. Don't worry about anything else in here. This is fine. Description. Again, in here we have a button, and we have a background color, which is our dark background, but if you're going to use a light background, make that 3 Fs, and that's fine. Down here we have the image, and this is for our play button, okay? So I'll show you how to upload that in a minute, but basically that little green play button is an image that we store on our site, and then we ask SharePoint to display it within this view. So after this part, we're going to upload the button, and you get the URL, and that's where you put it. Everything else is pretty much fine, but you're going to see where you see color and you have FFF and color FFF. That's the color for the created date and the duration. Again, if you're using a light theme, change that to black, 3 zeros, and you're going to be absolutely fine. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take all of this code in here, copy it all, and remember it'll be in the link below. Come over to our SharePoint site, back into here. I'm going to be in my custom JSON view. I'm going to say format current view, advanced mode because you're fancy, and then you're going to take all of this out of here, paste this in here, and you can say preview or you can hit save. So I'm going to hit save, and that's taken effect. And obviously it looks terrible at the moment because we've not added any content yet and we've not changed the theme of our site. So if yours looks as bad as mine looks right now at this point, don't panic, you're doing okay. Bear with it. Now the reason that my play button is here is because my code is referencing where I've stored that image on when I actually created this site for the example. But we're going to change that now in a sec. So that's all good, that's saved there, so happy days. So what you want to do now is you want to get your play button. Now I created a few different play buttons, and again I'm going to save them as individual images within the blog post so you can just copy them, download them, and then upload them as your image. I've created a couple of different standard colors. You could create this in PowerPoint if you wanted to, just have a circle shape and lay a triangle shape on top of that. Group them together, right click and say save as picture, and it's going to do the job perfect for you. So you can use one of the ones I've prepared earlier, or you can use one of your own. Either way, get your play button ready, and then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to come back to your site, and we're going to go to site contents, and we're going to go to site assets, and you're just going to upload your play button right here. So I'm going to drag mine over, I'm going to stick it in there, it's going to upload, which it has, and we need to get the URL for this play button. Okay, now if you just click the play button and it'll load up big and horrible like that, and you copy the URL from here, it's not going to work right because it's not an image file. So what you're going to want to do is, as long as, okay, you've uploaded exactly where I have, so you went to site contents, site assets, pop it in here, all you have to do is you're going to grab the URL from this page that you're on now. You're going to get it and you're going to paste it. It'll be something like this. And what you're going to want to do is, from where it says site assets, right, get rid of everything else and type in play button.png. And that's a direct link to that button where it's stored. Okay, so if I, for example, was to grab this link here, come back to my browser, pop it in here, we get our play button. Okay, that's the result you want, and that means the code will be able to reference it directly. So let's come back into our site pages, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go all pages again, custom JSON. I'm going to come down here and say format view. You can always come back to your code if you need to change anything. Okay, so I'm going to come back down here to where I had that image link, and I'm just going to swap out my old link for my new link. Okay, put it in there, and now I'll click save, and the button is still there, so everything works fine. So that's your custom JSON in place, and you'll see it come to life now when we actually add some content. So I'm going to get out of here, and just so this doesn't hurt my eyes so much, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the cog, and I'm going to say change the look, and let's apply our darker theme. So I'm going to say theme, and I'm going to come down here to dark yellow. And when I say dark yellow, it looks good. I'm going to click save, and now we can see this blends in a lot nicer. So that's what we wanted to happen. So this is all looking good. So just to show you it works, what we'll do is come back to all pages so we can actually interact with this. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to edit these two pages here. So I'm going to say to this one, and I'm going to hit my information. So I'm going to call this home 1. So I'm going to pick a thumbnail. I'm going to pick this one and say open, and that's uploaded there. So now we have our thumbnail. My duration, this is free text, so I choose the format 2 hours and 40 min. Okay. Page type, this is going to be, well, we're going to pretend it's an episode. No, we'll say it's general, and that is good. Okay, so we put that in here, and what we want to do is republish it because we've made a change here. And then if we come back to our JSON view, we see that it's starting to look a little better. We have our title, we have our link in our play button, we have the create date and the duration. Now you might notice that when we come in here and I have all pages, I have a description column here, but when I select the page and try and enter a description here, we don't actually see it. And that's because we don't edit it from here. Okay, so what you need to do to edit your description is I come to the page, you click edit, go to page details, and it's here that we get our description from, where you can enter in anything you want and it'll appear. So I'll just pull in a random description here from the blog post I'm writing as I'm recording this, and I'm going to click republish. I'll come back to pages. Now we see the description there, which is great. And I'm going to go to my custom JSON view, and now we have this in here, which is good. And when we obviously display this within a web part on a page, this will be a lot tighter and it'll look a lot better. But essentially that's all you need to do. So after that, then we just start creating some pages, and we're pretty good to go. So the last thing we want to do in here is we want to come down to the custom JSON view, and we want to filter this view so that we're not showing the general pages, okay, or any other page for that matter, all we want to do is show pages that we specifically tag with episode, because that's all we want to apply to our JSON view. So I'm going to make sure I've got custom JSON selected. I'm going to say edit current view. When I come in here, I get this ugly screen in here, but don't worry about it. I'm coming down to filter, and I want to show the items when the column, okay, and this is why we created one called page type. Now you can't see it because it's gone off my screen record, but I picked the column called page type, and I'm going to say equal to episode. And once I have that in here, I can say okay. And we've nothing to show here because we didn't tag any pages with episode, but that's fine. We'll rectify that now in a sec. So let's come back to the home page and let's just recap what we've done so far. So we've built a place to store our episode content, which is our episode content library. Okay, we're going to upload our video or audio files there. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing we did is in our site pages library, we created a new view called custom JSON, and we formatted that view with our JSON code. So that's going to give us a really nice list view of our episodes when we embed them on the page. Okay, so we've got that bit sorted. Okay, so the next thing we really want to do is you want to probably add some episodes in here. Okay, and then we'll do the home page and you'll see it all come together. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually build a podcast page. Okay, so what we'll do first is we're going to upload a video file, which will pretend is a podcast episode. So I'm going to go to site contents, and I'm going to go to episode content. And I have some dummy video content here. I'm just going to pull over a random video. So I'm going to pop it in here, and that's going to upload. And this is going to represent the recorded meeting or the recorded audio, whatever it is, that's the actual content of the episode. That's what this represents. Okay, so I have that in here. Oh, and a side note, if you're wondering why we're all of a sudden back to a white background when we chose a dark one, it's just a caching thing. So if I shift and press reload, it'll go dark again, and that's fine. So we have our episode in here. Let's just rename it to pretend it's real. So I'm just going to rename this one to Terence Crawford. Let's pretend that's what this is. Okay, so we have that great stuff. So we've got our media there. Let's create the page to display it on. So I'm going to say new. I'm going to say page. I'm going to keep it on blank, create page, and we're going to call this one 145 Terence Crawford. Okay, great stuff. I'm not going to go too much into what all the things you can do on this page, right? I'd basically be saying the same thing I said in the Netflix video on the video page, so you do something similar. So we'll do this bit quick. So in a header, I'm just going to keep it plain. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a section. Well, I'm going to just delete this one, create a new one, and it's going to be 1/3 right. And in here, we're going to add our file of media. And we're going to select our Terence Crawford episode, which is actually stock footage of an airplane, but it will do for now. And in here, I'm just going to say episode description, paste in some content here. I'm just going to make this a H2. And if you want to add in any of the metadata from your pages library, you could also do that, right? So if you type in page properties is what you're looking for in here. And it's going to say, well, what properties do you want to display? So I'll say add, and I don't care about the title, but I want to show the duration. And it says there's no duration to show, but we'll fix that now in a sec. We just want to get this here. That's the first thing. And that's great. So now we have basic, right? But it's our on-page content. You can watch the episode, learn more about the episode, see the duration. You could put in other things like links to external resources, or you could put in a feed of more podcast episodes in here. All straightforward and easy enough to do. Again, look at the Netflix video and you'll see a fairly in-depth look at that. But for now, the last thing we really want to do in here is we want to give this page the metadata that's going to make all of this work. So I'm going to go to page details while I'm still in edit mode. Remember, this is the description that's going to show up in the feed, so the handiest thing to do would probably be to grab this right here. So in my description here, put that in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add my thumbnail in here. So here's my Terence Crawford I have. If I want to, just to be consistent, I'll change this thumbnail to the exact same thing. So I'll stick him in there as well. Add image. Okay, so we got there. Duration, how long did we say this was? I think we said 2 hours, 40 min. That's grand. Page type, episode, right? Because we want it to appear in our view. So that's episode. Brilliant. If you want to change the thumbnail of the episode itself, the easiest way to do that is click the video, stop it playing, and then what you're going to want to do is go to video settings, and you're going to say thumbnail, and you're going to say upload. And again, I'm picking Terence Crawford, put it in there. Don't forget to click done, or it won't save. Say done. Say exit out of here. And now we've changed everything we need to change. I'm going to click publish. I'll say post as news. Why I'm posting it as news is because when we hook this up to our hub site, we're going to want to have it as news so we can use the news web part feature to aggregate a lot of the content. So that's good to do it like that. And then we're in good shape here. And if I hit shift and refresh, we should see everything kind of updates. And we can see my duration is popped in here now because it now has the metadata with it. So that's good. So we basically have we have a basic podcast episode here ready to go. Someone can click it and play it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add in a couple of more episodes so that I'm going to show you the home page and you'll have more context to see how it works. Okay, and through the magic of video editing, I've added in a couple of more episodes, okay? So you can start to see how this view is starting to look pretty good. So what we want to do next is build a home page of our podcast site. So I'm going to come to home and I'm going to click edit and I'm going to get rid of pretty much everything in here. And what we want to do is we want to build that top section of our site, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to one column, and in here, well, let's have a look at what we're building. So here we can see the home page of this site here, the home page on our demo site, and we can see here that we've got an image and we've got text here, and you might be thinking, well, that's straightforward enough. So let's just split this the way we have a narrow column here and a wider section here, and we have an image web part and a text web part. But if you do that, this starts to wrap. You don't get a lot of space here. So I found the easiest way to do it was to have this as just one text block here, and then we're going to just have the image displayed in line with the text, and that gives us the space we want. So what we'll do is we'll come here, we're going to add in a text web part. So I'm going to grab the text from here and paste it in. It comes in like this, but this is grand, so I can show you how I formatted it. So all I do is grab the name of the podcast, and I'm going to increase that quite big, put it to 68. Joe Rogan is there. I'm going to leave that at 18, and then I'm going to get this text down here, and I'm going to set it to 16. And we'll keep the about bold and this part not. And that's a nice in-your-face kind of title in here. And then all we need to do is get our thumbnail for our Joe Rogan experience, and I have it over here. And basically you're going to drag it. So I've dragged it out of my file explorer and I have it here, and I'm just going to pop it anywhere, and it comes in like that. And you want to pick this align left, so stick it in like that, and it came in way too big, so we're just going to grab the arrow here and bring it down a bit, line it left. And then it's going to come in here weird, right? So you're just going to have to retype in that, get rid of this. And what we can do is we can move this up to here, and that'll put it in here. And we've got this big space. So you'll just have to mess around with it a little bit just to get it where you want it to be. But in there looks about right. I get in fact move this down just a little bit, and then what we want to do is you want to separate the header of this page from everything else. So I select anywhere in the section, hit the edit section, and I'm going to pick this background color here, so that gives us our strong yellow. And I'm going to say republish for a second, because what I want to do is I want to change this to the green color I had in the demo. So I'm going to say into the cog, change the look, theme. I'm happy with this one, but I want to customize, and I want to say green. And then I'm going to say save, and now we are looking pretty good. So that's the header of your podcast, and now we want to put in the feed of all our episodes. So I'm going to say edit, and again I'm going to add in a one column for the moment, and I'm going to come in here. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type in document library, and I'm going to say I want the site pages library, and then I'm going to hit the pencil, and I'm going to say site pages is fine, but the view I want is our custom JSON view. I'm going to hide the command bar, hide the see all button, set it to auto size, and I'm going to click apply. And then we have our nice view of episodes. So let's republish that, and that looks good. And one thing we didn't do is change the title of the web part, so I'm going to click edit again, and I'm going to come in here and just call this latest episodes. Hit republish, and that looks pretty good. And then one last thing we might do, just to put a little bit of polish on it, is we'll change the logo again to something like this. So I'm going to say the cog, change the look, come into header, and I'm going to say site logo, change to my Joe Rogan experience logo, and that looks good in there, and I'll click save. So this is looking pretty good, right? The only other thing, or the only other difference I should say between the demo and what you have here is this is where you stop, okay, if you only need one podcast. The next part of the video is going to be all about creating additional sites like this, and then connecting them to a hub. So if we went down that road and we had multiple podcasts, we just edit this page and edit the section, okay? So we have a little bit of space on the left, and obviously this is in the wrong place, so move this over here. And we put in sites. And this would allow us to pick all the different sites that were in our hub site basically. So when we build the additional sites, we'll be able to add them in here. We'll change it to grid view, and we get this nice little view down here of all the different podcasts. That's the only additional step you'll do, or you'll have to come back to this site to do when you build the network or the hub site, but we'll get to that. So I'll just change this back to our one column for the moment. For everybody who just wanted to know how to build one podcast site, and I appreciate it took a little bit of time to get there, you can stop here. You're done. Have a cup of coffee and chill out. For everyone else, let's build a hub site. I'm going to build a couple of more of these in the background, and we'll see how to connect them all together. Okay, so now I have all the other podcast sites built. Okay, so I have got Joe Rogan, Tropical MBA, Two Bears, One Cave, My First Million, and Darknet Diaries. Now I built these sites the exact same way that I showed you building the Joe Rogan site. Okay, so nothing is different there. So now what we want to do is we've got these individual podcast sites just floating around in SharePoint land. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to bring them together, and the way we do that in SharePoint with any group of sites is through a hub site. And the way we create a hub site is, well, you need access to the admin center to do it, okay? But you're going to come in here, you're going to go to active sites, you're going to go create, and this is just the same as if you were creating any other site, okay? I'm going to say communication site. It doesn't really matter what you pick in here, but let's just pick this one, this template. Use template, give it a name, and we're going to call it our podcast network build along hub. Okay, crap name, but you'll get the picture. Just give yourself an owner, so I'll say myself, and say next. All this is fine. Create, and when your site's created, you're going to see it here. Okay, so to make it an actual hub site, what you got to do is you got to select it, and then up here where it says hub, you got to say register as a hub site. When you do that, you give it a name, or just keep the name you already gave it. People who can associate sites with this hub, well, I'm just going to put myself for now, but you pick whoever suits you, and I'm going to click save. So now let's go to the actual site itself, and we can see now that it's a hub. We have the hub navigation along the top. Okay, so happy days. So what we want to do now is we want to associate all of them podcast sites with this hub. So the way you do that is you come to any of them, and you're going to say go to the cog and say site information, and you see here hub site association. So you just pick whatever one you just created as your hub. So I picked this one, and I'm going to click save, and that's grand, and I'm just going to do that for all of the other ones now. Perfect, so that's done. So what I want to do is come back to my hub site here. Now it's important that we picked a dark theme for all our individual podcast sites. Now that they've become associated with a hub, they're going to inherit whatever theme is actually applied to the hub site itself. So we want them all to be dark, and we've set up our custom Json view to be on a dark site. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the theme of our hub site to that dark theme, and that'll make sure everything stays the same and stays consistent. So I'm going to go to theme, I'm going to pick my dark yellow again, I'm going to customize it so I have the green, I'm going to click save, and now we're in good shape. So now it's just about building a homepage experience on this hub to bring everything together. So it's very quick. This part of the video won't take long at all. So I'm going to click edit in here. I'm going to get rid of this in here, and I'm going to get rid of this in here. So we're starting off pretty much blank. And what I want at the top is one column, and in here I'm going to put in the hero web part. So this has 5 tiles, which is grand, that suits us. And this is where we're going to build a hero area, which links to all the podcasts and lets us promote them nice and big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to my Joe Rogan podcast site, copy the link, come in here, say select link. I'm going to say from link, paste in that link, add, and now that's in there. And what I want to do obviously is change the thumbnail here. So I'm going to click the pencil icon. I'm going to say background image, and I'm going to say custom image, change, and I'm going to upload the image I prepared for my Joe Rogan podcast. Going to click open, going to add image. It's going to pop it in there. Now it's too big. The image I uploaded is too big to fit in here. So I'm just going to hit this little zoom out and zoom it out till it fits nicely. So that's grand there. And I'm just going to do the same for the other podcasts. From link, add in, and again, I'm going to change the custom image, change, upload, add image, and you just play around with this zoom out until you get it fitting nicely. So I'll do the same for the other ones, exact same way, and then you'll start to see it come to life. And that's all them added there, and you can see it starts to look pretty nice. It's worth putting a bit of effort into the thumbnail or the branding of your podcast. You can see here I'm obviously leveraging branding that's come from fairly established podcasts, but it really adds to the aesthetic of the overall site. So if you're going to do something similar, it's worth trying to put that extra little bit of effort into the thumbnails to really drive the branding and make it look really nice, basically. So we have that there. So there's the links to all our different podcast sites. Now just here on this Joe Rogan, when you see this little learn more, we don't really need that. Into options, turn off the call to action link, and that looks much better already. So that's fantastic. So we have the hero section where we're driving people to the home pages of our individual podcasts, but we want to also show the latest and the trending, and that's very quick and very simple. All we do is we add in another section here and make it 2 columns. And in the left hand side, what we're going to do is we're going to use the news web part. And what we're going to do is, it's already pulling this in already, but let's choose a list layout for this. And we can see all sites in the hub. It's going to pull in the latest news from all of them. And we can say show up to 8 in here. And you can see they're all shown in here, which is great. And, you know, I like to turn off number of views, author, and publish date because I get much more of the description in here. But that's fine, and we can call this latest episodes. And then we can come over to this side and we can add in the highlighted content web part. And again, we're going to say all sites in the hub, but I want you to show me news. And that's why it was important to publish all of our episodes as news, so we can use that to aggregate. So we come in here and we can sort by most recent, or we can sort by trending. So I've chose trending, and that's what people are listening to most on our network. And we'll say trending episodes, which is good, and that all matches up there, so that's brilliant. And then we just republish, and that is the landing page of our podcast network, which is pretty good. I think it's a nice place for people to come in, see what the main shows are, and then see the episodes across them all. It's a nice, rich, engaging user experience. The very final step to do on it would be, now that we have this network of podcasts, if I went to any of these podcasts here, so Darknet Diaries for example, I'll come to edit, and this is where we add in the links to all the other podcasts. So I'll just edit this section, give me a bit of space on the left, move this fella over to the right, and like I said before, we're going to come in here, we're going to get the sites web part, which is great, and we'll call it podcasts. And what we can do is we can say select sites, and then we just pick, you know, whatever podcast is not the one that I'm actually on. So I'm going to pick all 4 of these guys. I'll set it to grid, and now we have this nice list of other podcasts. So if I click republish, we're in here, Darknet Diaries, but we could as easily go and navigate to Joe Rogan. And then I just repeat the exercise then for each of the podcast home pages. I'll do it on this last one here. I'll come in here, move this over there, type in sites, and again select sites, and I'll select obviously everything that's not this current one. Set it to grid, and I'll say podcasts, and click republish. So you can see it's a way to build a really nice experience where people can explore the content, and there's not a whole lot of barrier for navigating and getting around. So with the benefit of everything being in a hub, you also get the hub navigation. So this is a navigation bar that's present across all sites within the hub. So if I went then again back to Darknet Diaries, I still see here I have a link back to the landing page of our network, and I could also add links in here, which could be another way to navigate all of these different podcast sites. So that's it. I know it was a bit of a journey to get to this point, and I know not everyone has podcasts, right? But really I'm just trying to demonstrate really in this that you can build these nice custom experiences that really replicate experiences people have on other platforms that they're used to. So obviously the big example in this was the Json view to mirror Spotify, which worked out nice. It was a good learning curve for me. So I hope you found it useful. I hope you can use it somewhere else. Please like and subscribe if you found this helpful. It really helps me with this channel and gives me that added motivation to keep going. So until next time on the next strange SharePoint adventure, see ya.